Tonight on Voice of Reason, in an indifferent world filled with apathy and cynicism, we're going to meet two people who refuse to let the naysayers stop their important work. Through love and goodwill, our guests tonight are making a big difference, and they are changing the world. Hello, everybody. I'm Larry Kane. Welcome to Voice of Reason here on the Comcast Network. You know, there is an old Chinese proverb that says, those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it. Tonight, in our continuing series, People Who Are Changing the World, we're going to meet two individuals who are doing just that. Through grassroots efforts, they are providing money, food, shelter, medicine, and probably more importantly, love and hope to poor people around the world, and yes, even here in the U.S. Before we meet Brian McClure, founder of the Universal Flag Organization, I want to introduce you to Dr. Martina Fuchs, founder and executive director of the Real Medicine Foundation, a network of 80 doctors and specialists dedicated to answering calls for help around the world. Now, here's what happened. After watching the devastation caused by the 2004 tsunami in Sri Lanka, Dr. Fuchs went to that country to try and help as many people as she could. Thanks for joining us this evening, and congratulations on your efforts. First of all, tell me, you actually watched this on television, and you made that decision to go there? Is that what happened?
Yes, that's what happened. I could not let go of the faces of the children on television and on the internet who had lost everything.
How did you organize all these doctors into one important organization?
This happened one step at a time. At the beginning, it was just me. I went to Sri Lanka by myself and helped to establish a small children's clinic in one of the refugee camps in the very south of Sri Lanka.
What kind of a doctor are you?
I'm a pediatrician.
Okay, so as a pediatrician, you naturally felt an empathy with these kids. How did you get the money to do this? This is not just something you just take a flight and do it. Did you donate most of your own money, or did you raise the money?
I donated most of my own money for the first 5.5 weeks that I was there. And our network, Real Medicine Foundation, one of the concepts is friends helping friends helping friends. And that's actually how it started at the very beginning, that friends helped me to go. So spontaneously, friends put money together and donated to me so that I had the possibility to go.
Now, what about your practice back? I assume your home is in the Los Angeles area?
Yes.
What about your practice back at home? What happened to that?
I was able at that time to take that time out, and after the work in Sri Lanka, a few months later, Real Medicine Foundation actually completely took over my life. So that's what I'm doing now, because we work in 10 countries.
Now, you're working in 10 countries. So where are some of the locations?
We have a clinic at the base of the Himalayas that was established after the earthquake in October 2005 in Pakistan, close to the city of Balakot that got completely destroyed. Then we have ongoing projects in Sri Lanka. We have 2 clinics. We have 2 preschools, and we are supporting the local hospital in the very south of Sri Lanka. We have projects in India, in one of the poorest districts in India, Jabua district, Madhya Pradesh. And we are supporting 3 schools there. It's about 1,000 children who receive, of course, education. They can stay there. They get food and health care. And through these children, we reach the families as well. And we just started an HIV/AIDS project in that area as well, since, as you know, HIV/AIDS is exploding in India. And then we have also a project in Indonesia after the earthquake in May 2006.
So you're ready to move on a moment's notice. Is that the deal?
You know, we try to. We are very young, as you know. We are now 2 years old. We just had our 2nd anniversary in August of this year. So our projects, what we do, we sustain the projects we already have, and they keep growing, because once you have a clinic, of course, the numbers of patients just keeps growing because the need is so immense. And we are just right now establishing a clinic in Peru after the earthquake in August. So we move as quickly as we can, you know, considering we are that young as an organization.
Let me ask you this question. I mean, this is not a patronizing question. I'm just curious. You go after the tsunami, and then you start going around the world. You've formed a combine of 80 doctors. I mean, more than, and I presume you're obviously a very successful person in California. This has got to provide a special feeling that you could not otherwise get doing anything in life, I would presume.
Yeah, actually, you know what I'm very excited about is to see the faces of the children and their families that we're actually being able to help, and the ripple effects that are possible. Yes, it's something that makes me very, very happy to see, you know, what you can do. And we are still working on a shoestring budget, but the ripple effects are enormous, and I'm very proud of that. And I wouldn't be able to do it without all these amazing people we have on our team, and it's basically volunteers. We right now have 2 volunteers in Peru who are doing an amazing job establishing a clinic in the north of Pisco after the earthquake.
We'll have to check in with you more about your geographical breadth and the span of what you're doing right after this break, as we continue with Dr. Martina Fuchs, who watched television, saw an event, and it changed her life forever. Once again, our first guest, Dr. Martina Fuchs from Los Angeles. Again, Dr. Fuchs, thanks for joining us. Just a quick question to you before we get to our next guest. How do the governments feel where you've been? You know, you're talking about Indonesia, you're talking about Pakistan, one of the troubled nations of the world. Are you welcome with open arms there?
Yes, actually, we have received a lot of support, and we try to actually go directly to the decision makers in each country so that we get the permits, and we just do it all culturally sensitively.
Well, that brings me, Dr. Fuchs, and we hope you watch and listen to this, because we're going to bring you back a little later. You think this is, I know medical care obviously brings people together and unites people and they see people in the flesh, but a flag for everybody, you like the idea?
You know, I have actually made a very similar experience seeing so many different people in so many different countries. It's one big human family. We all have the same longings, the same needs. We want to take care of our families, of our loved ones, and want to make sure they are safe. So there are not really difference between people.
You know, there will be people watching. We're in a holiday period now, this weekend. And we're starting our holiday period here in America and throughout the world. There will be some people who are saying, wait a second, Larry, this guy's talking about a flag for everybody. You're denying the red, white, and blue. All right? Are you trying to take us away from our own patriotic roots? Just as an adversarial question.
And I would say absolutely no. We are part of a larger process. And one of the things that we do in life is we create a position of separation instead of inclusion. This symbol simply is the inclusive symbol that everyone can recognize and allows us to be a more tolerant world, a more helping world, so that it's not only Dr. Fuchs, but everyone who can start to reach out and start to change through the globalization of ideas, the globalization of cultures, the globalization of more than just economics, which has been the only force in globalization that we've had so far.
We'll talk to Brian McClure and Dr. Fuchs right after this, and some interesting questions, I think, about where this kind of concept takes us in a world filled with so much terror and anxiety. We'll be right back. Back here in Voice of Reason with 2 very inspirational stories. Joining us from Los Angeles, Dr. Martina Fuchs, founder of the Real Medicine Foundation, and Brian McClure, author and philanthropist. Can you share with the people watching what you just told me? You don't mind, do you?
No.
Because it's kind of personal. I was a little surprised at the way you came about this. I thought, is this a guilt trip? Is this a problem that you thought you had too much, or that you felt badly about your success? Tell me some of the psychodrama that existed inside of you that brought you to this point.
Probably much the same as Dr. Fuchs. I was internally bothered. I was very bothered by recognizing that we had no symbol that connected us to the oneness and the interdependence that we had. At the same time, I really didn't want to be the person that would create that symbol. And for 3 years, I was awakened at 3 in the morning, and I was basically told by some type of very loud inner voice to create the universal flag and symbol. And I basically told whatever that voice was that they had the wrong person. They needed to contact Oprah or Wayne Dyer or anyone who would have that ability, that I knew nothing about a universal flag. And that voice didn't go away. Ultimately, some very close things to me were taken away, and it was at that point that I had a choice to either go to work on what I was told and had an inner calling to do, or to let it go. I chose to pursue creating the symbol.
Is there a religious piece of this at all?
Not at all. Not at all. It simply connects us to the truth of what we all know from the core, and that is that we are all eternal and one with everyone and everything.
You know, it's an interesting pattern here, Dr. Fuchs, because although you don't have a universal flag in your missions, you're doing basically the same thing. You're uniting people through person-to-person contact, which is an extraordinary way to tell people about Americans and people who work here and really what they're about. Do you find that all that politics we talked about, Indonesia, Pakistan, that it sort of goes by the wayside when you go out and do your work?
Yes, and we focus solely on the humanitarian aspect. And, you know, we, among all of our team members, we speak more than 30 languages, and we have all ethnicities, we have all religions, all kinds of belief systems. So it's just beautiful to you know, to have everybody represented and actually have the same cause and the same vision.
What about the people who might say to you, what about the United States? Although we appear to be an affluent nation, that is not really true. There are many sections of our nation where there are poor people, people who are disadvantaged, and last figure I heard, 37 million people without medical care. Are you planning to turn inward as well?
We actually have a project. We worked in Hurricane Katrina. We had a project in Hurricane Katrina, and we are right now working here in Los Angeles. There are 16,000 homeless children in Los Angeles at any given point in time, and 650,000 living under poverty level. And what we do here in Los Angeles is we provide training to teachers on how to identify and support traumatized children. And this has been very successful and very, very needed, since a lot of these children grow up in violent neighborhoods, grow up in extreme poverty, and the trauma is very complex. And this is in alignment with our vision, since Real Medicine Foundation focuses on the person as a whole. So it's not just the physical, medical, but also emotional, social, and economic support.
Brian, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
And we learned, actually, this is a concept that we learned in disaster relief, that often the emotional trauma, the psychological trauma after a disaster is neglected. And, you know, people who live in homelessness have a very complex trauma that just doesn't go away.
Are there some people who believed when you began this foundation and these efforts that there was a personal motive involved? Was there skepticism?
No, and I think it's always personal. You know, whatever you do and take on is to a certain degree personal, and then if you're lucky, there will be people who are joining you. And I was lucky, and the organization grew and just kept growing. And when I first started, I did not have a master plan. This was just very personal. I just wanted to help as a person, and since I have the skills being a pediatrician, I knew I could help as a pediatrician. So I did not plan this organization. It just kept growing. When
you began your career, because I am fascinated by this, I presume that when you began your career, you came out of medical school, that, and I'm not trying to get personal here, but that you weren't particularly affluent, that you succeeded on your own?
You know, I was always fine, but it was never that important to me. I guess, you know, I had this quest doing medical school in my 20s. What makes me happy? And what I figured out is actually it makes me happy to contribute whatever I have available in this life. So, you know, the focus was always more, and you know, of course you make a lot of money as a doctor if you choose to, but it's not necessarily what fulfills you the most.
Thank you very, very much for joining us, Dr. Martina Fuchs from Los Angeles.